Taking time out of his busy days, our good friend, Dr. Dennis Norem from Mercy Health, here to talk some more COVID-19 with us, as we've been doing here each and every Monday, seemingly since the late 60s.
Been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Dr. Norem, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, you're right. It's getting a little old that we're still talking COVID, but we're going to be at this a while, I think.
Yeah, it does seem that we are going to be. I want to get your take on the emergency authorization to treat COVID-19 patients with convalescent plasma. You're hearing breakthrough, you're hearing promising, you're hearing other people say, no, wait, hold on, slow down.
Well, I think that, again, it's one of those situations where we don't have the good studies to show the effectiveness and safety. However, having said that, I think it's pretty widespread that people are using and have been using convalescent syrup with what appears to be fairly good results. But again, we just don't have the good double-blind, placebo-controlled studies of convalescent serum. Keep saying syrup. Must be breakfast time.
It must be. For people who aren't aware, it's blood plasma taken from patients who've recovered from the coronavirus. Rich in antibodies may provide benefits to those battling the disease, but the evidence so far has not been conclusive about how well it works, when to administer it, and what sort of dosing is needed.
And that you bring up a couple excellent points. When you do studies and you find effectiveness and you determine the proper dose and the proper timing, it's kind of trial by error right now. People are trying different doses, different ways of using the serum. It seems to be effective, but nobody knows yet what the best, I guess you would say, recipe is for using it.
A lot of times, words start popping up when we talk about coronavirus and COVID-19 that everyone just starts using them, and I feel like we were supposed to know what they meant the whole time. I've never heard of convalescent serum. Did I say that right, by the way?
Convalescent plasma.
Convalescent plasma. Is this something we always have had? Do I have convalescent plasma serum in me right now?
Well, you probably do. If you have a disease, the convalescent period would be the period after you're over that illness. So you're looking for the antibodies or the immune reaction in the convalescent phase. So your body's recovered, you've produced your antibodies, you've healed the infection. So that term's been used in a lot of different ways. I think after a person has an acute illness, in this case, we're talking about using that plasma after the person has gotten over COVID-19. In other words, they convalesced.
Gotcha.
Okay. You got it figured out now?
Yeah, just everyone starts using these words. I'm like, I don't know what that word means.
Sure. Well, all you have to do is, glance over it in an article or one time and just try to work it into your everyday conversation. Yeah, how you doing on that convalescent plasma? What?
I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, just, promising. Dr. Norm, another thing that I found was promising, and, for those who have acid reflux, like I do, you think to yourself, is there something good about this? Well, potentially, coronavirus outcomes improved by heartburn drug famotidine, according to a new study, which is basically what? Pepcid AC.
Yes, it's a histamine blocker, so-called H2 blocker. So it may get into some of that idea that if you block certain receptors in the body, then the virus has less ability to attach onto the cells. I see articles that popped up again, with the blood pressure medicines. There's some pretty good evidence that people that take ACE inhibitors, the ACE and so-called ARB, angiotensin receptor blockers for hypertension, those people seem to have a better outcome and are less likely to get the disease. And it's consistent, too, with what we talked about in the past about asthmatics who have lower levels of ACE receptors in their lungs. They seem to be less likely to get COVID. So it's interesting that these blocking agents seem to be beneficial.
Yeah, famotidine in Pepcid, which is an acid-reducing drug used in hospitalized patients with COVID-19, associated with a lower risk of death, lower risk of combined outcome of death and intubation, and lower levels of severe disease effects in the blood of hospitalized patients with COVID-19.
Yes, very interesting. I wouldn't advise anybody to take that as a preventative, but it may be beneficial for people who early on in the disease, or maybe we can study it. Again, a good example of a drug that needs to be studied further in a controlled trial.
Let's talk testing here for a little bit. Saliva Direct. It's been used a lot in state here, down in Champaign. I think I read somewhere that University of Illinois has done like 2% of the nationwide testing so far. It's less invasive than the nasal swab. Apparently, you can get results back a lot quicker. What do you know about Saliva Direct? Is this maybe the next step of the testing that will go across the country?
Well, I think hopefully it is. You probably read the same thing, that little blurb that I read about the U of I using this. Apparently they can do it fairly cheaply. The reagents only cost about $5 a piece. Turnaround time is probably 3 hours or less. And it's a saliva test, so they just put a little swab in your mouth and put it in a clean container. So it's fairly simple to do. It's not invasive, and you get results quickly. And that's something we've been looking for a long time, is a reliable test that can give you results very quickly, so you can make a decision within a few hours, not 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 days. This should revolutionize, in a way, the way we approach our screening and our patients.
This Saliva Direct, is this related to the same thing that was tested through the NBA coming back?
I believe so, because I believe the NBA is using rapid tests like this, and I believe Saliva Direct is the only one the FDA has approved, because it's the only one that has met that threshold of 90% accuracy.
What's the next step to get that more spread throughout the country, to get the Saliva Direct test instead of the nasal swabs?
That's a good question. I don't really know. I think that the labs that are doing the testing are the institutions, the hospitals, the public health departments, are going to have to contract and purchase this testing when it becomes available. I don't know what the supply side is. How quickly can this company ramp up millions of doses of this? And is this an open source type test? In other words, will they allow other companies to use the same formulas to make the chemicals that are needed for the test?
And then, in one more testing question, and bring it back to sports a little bit. NFL had a little bit of a problem yesterday, as thousands of positive tests all of a sudden rolled into their sites, and it turns out many of them, or almost all of them, were false positives. How does a whole batch of tests come back false positive in what should be a highly controlled situation?
Well, there's human error. There's the whole question of the chemicals, the reagents that are used for the test. Were they stored properly? Were they contaminated? Many parts of that testing chain, if something doesn't go quite right, can be thrown off. I guess there were, 8 or 9 bears that tested positive. So that was a huge problem, and it's probably a problem with manufacturing and the fact that everybody's under so much pressure to get these tests out as quickly as possible, that there was probably a problem with some of the testing chemicals.
All right. And speaking of testing, I'm seeing an Israeli company and a French company, and a series of French hospitals as well are trying to get it online or get a prototype out to start testing a new breathalyzer type machine that would detect the presence of COVID-19 in about 10 seconds, not unlike a breathalyzer to see if you've been drinking.
Well, that would be fascinating. You could get stopped on the street and somebody could just breathalyze you. But you just wonder that it just strikes me that would be a very difficult test to remain accurate, given the fact that there's so many different things in your breath, depending on your food and alcohol and all those kinds of things.
One more about detection. We hear about dogs that can smell, cancer or things like that all the time. Apparently, there's some dogs out there that can pretty accurately smell COVID on people as well. Would that ever be implemented in a serious medical way, or is that sort of just a fun fact?
I think that's just a fun fact because I don't know how you would test the reliability of the dog, and what if the dog's having a bad day or upset with you and we decide not to.
Yeah, I didn't get that dog out for that walk. Now he's got me bounced out of work for the next 2 weeks. So apparently he had an agenda at work here. And every day there's something new that pops up, and no one would know that better than you, Dr. Norem, from being right front and center with all of this. But I'm reading this morning, zinc, vitamin D, and the coronavirus. What doctors know so far, and they're talking about an established link between having the proper amount of vitamins and minerals working through your system at the same time as an added benefit to fighting off what could be, COVID blooming in your life.
Well, it kind of makes sense because the coronavirus we've known for years is one of the causes of the common cold, and some of these products with zinc in them and vitamins seem to have had some benefit for treatment and or prevention of the common cold. So I guess it would make some sense that it should have effect against the COVID-19 since it is a coronavirus.
So make sure you're getting proper nutrition, I guess. But, that would seem to be one of those medical catch-alls that you should make sure you have all those things going anyway, even if we didn't have any COVID-19.
Well, absolutely. Again, nutrition is important in maintaining an adequate, good immune system. Known that for years. When people are ill, when they're malnourished, their immune systems are down. And obviously, the immune system is important when we're dealing with COVID.
And just to double check with you, I think I know the answer. I don't think it's changed, but masks, we should be wearing them, Brent?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think the recent information on mask testing is important. As I think about 2 weeks ago, Duke came out with their little test and showed the different kinds of masks and which ones were not effective. And the concern is that gator-type mask that you see some people wearing not only may not be effective, it may make things worse because it may actually separate the droplets and make the number of droplets that are spewed out even worse. But it was reassuring to see that the N95s, cotton masks that you make at home, surgical masks, all seem to be pretty effective.
But you agree with the research there that the gator type masks not effective, correct?
Not effective. No.
It's going to make a lot of people upset.
Wear a mask.
Yeah, it's going to make a lot of people in Major League Baseball and other sports who are marketing those now with your favorite sports team on it and wearing them on TV every night. We're not really doing much of anything other than advertising our team then.
Yeah, absolutely, and you may actually be making things a little bit worse. And, of course, the bandana, which is kind of similar, where you pull the bandana off, that's kind of useless, too.
Gotcha. Okay, so get yourself a real mask is the bottom line on this.
Wear a mask.
Yes.
Yes. Get yourself
if you
a
get
real
one
mask.
thing from this.
Real mask.
Okay.
Yeah, David Ross.
Wears a real mask.
Yeah, David Ross, we're looking at you. Yeah, and many other people.
Pretty much everybody in baseball
pretty
right
much
now.
everybody else in Major League Baseball. Dr. Norm, is there anything we haven't asked you about what's going on currently with COVID-19 that you've come across that people ought to know about?
Well, nothing off the top of my head. I'm heading back to Arizona in a week. I'll be interested to see how things are going there.
Yeah,
They have been calming down. They were taken off the list of one of the states that was having the largest increase. So hopefully they're on. And we're hoping that we'll see kids back in school there, but that remains to be seen. So.
All right. Yeah, and we'll be interested in your take on how the mountains look once again as well.
Yeah, I don't see too many mountains here.
I think the dive bars are about to open back up in Arizona, so you'll be fine.
Yeah, you should be just fine. Dr. Norm, as always, we appreciate the time and the expertise. Look forward to talking to you about this again.
All right, see you guys next week.